Manning out of the gun. Manning lets it fly. It's caught by Thomas. There's the record for Peyton Manning.
Nothing wrong with Orange and Blue Podcast.
What is up, Broncos country? What is up, NRW crew? Welcome to another episode of Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue on this beautiful Friday. With me, I have three co-hosts, Cameron Parker, Glenn Hauser, and Mr. Boggins. What is going on, gentlemen?
Good evening.
Nothing.
Yeah, obviously nothing's going on socially, so here we are.
There's no better place you guys can be. How you doing, Cameron? Well, thank you for coming in today and being a guest on the podcast. Johnny couldn't be here today, Broncos Viking. He had a thing with work to do today, but we have wonderful, beautiful people filling in. So, Cameron, thank you. Beautiful. Glenn, thank you. Mr. Boggins, thank you. How you guys doing? How you doing, Cameron?
I'm doing good. You know, it feels like I've known Glenn the longest since, I've appeared with him the most, and so this is like the first time I've actually appeared like with Boggins now. So it's like it's sort of been a long time coming, and obviously I haven't done one with you, Isaiah, in a long time. So it seems like it's been a while. So all I need now is just Glenn's social security number. We should be okay.
I got it. I'll text it to you.
I'm still waiting for that extended warranty you sold me.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a fantastic and wonderful show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video so we can share it out to all Broncos country. As you know, on Friday, how we do things, we go to a quick preview of the previous game, and then we go forward and we talk about the future game. We do predictions, and then we go over what we think the keys to the game are. But before we do that, we're going to go over the quick schedule. On Tuesdays, don't forget to tune into Broncos Talk with Richie and a 6'10" Mexican at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, and 4 p.m. Western. And on Thursday, we have our flagship podcast, MHRT, with Mundungus Creevy, Glenn Hauser, a 6'10" Mexican, and Mr. Boggins at the exact same times. And then here today, every Friday, you have Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue, which is at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, and 4 p.m. Western. And then on Sundays,
Pacific.
We have our Pacific, thank you. And then on
I had to correct you the second time.
And on Sundays, we have the Neighborhood Podcast, which is our new pregame show, which starts about an hour to an hour and a half before each game. So this Sunday, there will be a pregame show, The Neighborhood. I don't have Johnny's soundboard thing, so I can't do the horse sound. But The Neighborhood, Sunday evening. This Sunday evening, we'll start about an hour and a half before, so you can tune in, listen to the new predictions, new keys, updated injury reports, updated player reports, and we're going to come in, tune in, exercise our demons, and then we're going to get to the game. So we're going to come in, check out the chat. Avatar says, sad thing is I won't be able to watch because my satellite provider is having a dispute with NBC. Avatar, DM me personally, or you can DM Nothing Rhymes, and I've got something for you that I can send to you, so that way DM us on Twitter, so that way you can be able to watch the game, because we want all Broncos to watch. We want all Broncos fans to watch the games.
Well, I was going to say I know the feeling. My parents and I believe we have the Dish Network, and Dish Network removed KUSA.
Yep.
They removed KUSA Channel 9. So luckily with the apartment that I'm in, we have the Comcast provider, so we're able to get the Channel 9. So, we can be able to still watch it. But yeah, for some weird reason, Dish decided to remove Channel 9, probably for some contract dispute. And so that's exactly what that is. So unfortunately,
that's a tough situation.
It also pushes you to get Sunday ticket. That's why Dish had no problem.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Avatar, hit me or Johnny up, or our dual Twitter, and then I can hook you up so that way you can watch the game on Sunday as well. EJ's in the house. EJ says hopefully Shermer will use Fant more. Teams think we don't use him, so this might be our week to utilize Fant. He's due for a big game. We were just talking about Noah Fant before in the green room before we went live. So, yes, I definitely agree with you. WizKid is in the house.
We don't use them.
He said teams think we don't use him as much, and I agree with that. He's had he stepped up the last few games, but definitely not an X factor or a game changing player yet. And EJ saying he thinks that this could definitely be the game for him, and he's due for one. So I definitely agree with that. WizKid in the house. What's up, WizKid? Dave Full Glassman. What's going on? Shadow Jacker in the house. What's up, Shadow? Vic is in the house. He says, cheers. Cheers to you, Vic. Cheers to you. He said they gave up their antenna when they got the satellite. Okay. Boss Man is in the house. What's up, Boss Man? Hope you're healing well and doing better. Mile High Prophet is in the house. What's up, Mile High Prophet? He says this is a season that the Chiefs learn that they don't get to win just because they have Mahomes. I love where your head's at, and I agree with you. I like that.
They not only have Mahomes, though, they have Honey Badger. And I think Cam Parker realized that today.
Yeah, Cam, you have a personal relationship with Honey Badger. Would you guys spend Thanksgiving together or what? What's that about?
We're getting ready to spend the holidays together, I guess.
Tell the story. It's awesome.
So basically, anybody that's very familiar now with Broncos country, or should I say now Javonte Williams now, has a very evergreen video that gets shared with the office of Dwight, pushing the other two people of the basically everyone with the football in his hand. So it's like an evergreen video that gets shared because it's like a depiction of Javonte Williams. And so I just shared that today on Friday, not tagging Tyrann Mathieu. We should probably give that most important clarification. They're not tagging him. And I did Daniel Sorensen as well, and Tyrann Mathieu responded just underneath that. Not toxic or anything like that, but just it was just okay, bet. Mm-hmm. And then of course par for the course on social media, with Twitter and everything. It was one that they just rolled with it. Everybody rolled with it. Broncos country rolled with it. The Chiefs Nation rolled with it. It was it was one that really blew up. Probably should I say within the first 15 minutes and. I probably should expect that, when you have a Pro Bowl safety, respond to something like that. So, of course, when he responded, I had to do the aforementioned Sarah Bettinger response, which was, I love you, you're smart, I'm stupid, you're smart, like the basically the scene from Happy Gilmore. It was one that really got Broncos country and Chiefs Nation riled up according to Michael, Bronco land and Chiefs Nation riled up.
Yeah, it was beautiful. You had all of Broncos country quote tweeting and backing you up and preparing for war. So you get ready to lead us in the battle, Cameron, this Sunday. So
you know the bad part about it though, if we lose, you exactly know who to blame.
It's fine. Twitter isn't real. That's what you just go back to. Twitter isn't real.
Twitter isn't a real place.
Cam, the views on the video are almost at 45,000 at this point.
I think what was it, Jared? It was almost at like
your post went viral.
It went viral within the first 15 minutes. The minute Tyrann Mathieu decided to respond to that.
We have a social media influencer on our podcast. So
Honey Badger is right. Much that he finds when people don't even tag him. he smells it out.
I never understand sometimes though. I mean, sometimes when players do that. I mean, if your goal is to kind of shut out the outside world and not buy into the the hype or read your press clippings, that kind of thing. I never understood that. Obviously you can use it as motivation. We've seen that sometimes with Noah Fant and him liking his own tweets and stuff like that. But which I'm sure we'll talk about Noah Fant here in a little bit. But it's one that, I never understood that. I mean, I can get some of the logic certainly behind it, but I never understood searching your own name on social media and potentially reading your own press clipping, so to speak, on social media.
Yeah. I think some people really love to play with like a chip on their shoulder. Like, I mean, this is obviously a new level of that, but even Honey Badger coming out of college was just like feisty. And I mean, he's just always had that chip on his shoulder. I'm sure he just loves to go around and bite off. I don't want to say smaller people's head, but not people that have the stature of him in the NFL, and just like, I don't know, make himself feel big for the game, or I don't know, but whatever. Yeah. Javonte is gonna shove a toe down his throat, so it's fine.
Yeah, he'll give him the treatment that he gave the Dallas Cowboys, the Baltimore Ravens, and carry about 8,000 people with him, and break the missed tackle record all in one game.
If Teddy Bridgewater can stiff arm the life out of Joey Bosa, I'm pretty sure Javonte Williams can just own.
What makes it so interesting, the interaction between that, is that Honey Badger is a fantastic player. He's a Pro Bowl safety. Yeah. He can back it up. So it's interesting to see. Cameron, you're definitely going to be watching the game with different lenses on. And when he makes a play, you're like, oh, God.
Look up at the camera, just like point directly into the camera.
He's gonna be like, that's for you, and you're like, you know what I'm talking about. So it's
well, the worst would be if just all of a sudden Sunday Night Football decided to drop in the clip of all things. You're like, this is the video that inspired it all.
Yeah,
they could do that too, because The Office was an NBC show. So there's we might have to tag NBC Sports on this.
Right,
Al Michaels on this.
Right.
Dave Full Glassman, he asked where Johnny was. Hey, Dave, Johnny had something to do with work today. So, unfortunately, he's not here today. So we have a full house. So that's where Johnny is. But, we're going to jump into the actually, Avatar. Yeah, I just DM'd you back and sent you that. So let me know if you got it. My High Prophet says, please post link to the video. I think he's talking about your video, Cameron, that went viral that he's talking about. But we're going to go, I know we beat it with a dead horse, but this is our first time talking about it. We're going to go into a quick preview, not too long, of the Broncos Chargers games. I want to know what everybody thought, what their opinions were, improvements that could be made, sustains. What are we thinking, Glenn?
Well, first of all, I'd prefer that you don't use the term dead horse when we're on a Broncos podcast. If we could
Sorry, Peter.
Start.
All right.
Rule number one.
Alien,
I mean, Don wanted to give Thunder away last night for Russell Wilson.
In the trade.
That's hilarious.
But in true Don form, he forgot the name of Thunder. Anyway, you know what? It was an awesome game. It was an awesome performance all the way around. It was great to see Teddy redeem himself. I did not think Broncos country was going to pull the teeth out of, they had taken a big old bite out of him after the Eagles game, and I didn't think they were going to let go. And sure enough, he's diving for a touchdown. He's, the aforementioned stiff arm against Bosa on a touchdown pass, just coming back from that injury and saving us, because Drew Lock was certainly not going to be the answer in that game. It was awesome. And to put us in a position where if we win Sunday night, and there's a real distinct possibility that we will, we're in first place in the AFC West, 12 games in. And that is something that I don't think any of us expected.
No. And I think the thing that was probably the most important thing, and it's something that we didn't really even touch on the Mainly Broncos podcast, but it's one that I think it was certainly touched on by, Sayre and Cody over at the Lockdown Broncos podcast just before I hopped on here. And they said that, really the game that he did have against the Chargers was actually not just an important game coming after that Eagles game, but a huge game coming into this Chiefs game on Sunday Night Football. Like, it gave him that amount of confidence coming into this game that, for whatever reason, if he were to go toe-to-toe with Pat Mahomes, he has that enough confidence that he could go toe-to-toe with him, knowing the fact that he has those types of weapons around him that he can potentially get that done. And so it was one that I think, for his sake, for Teddy's sake, that gave him all the confidence in the world, whether statistically, whatever, if you guys want to look at it, in any way or any lens, that's your business. But it's like, I mean, if you just truly look at the game, he minimized the damage. Something Drew Lock didn't do in the first minute of the game or minute of the game that he was in. So, I mean, if he can do that, and if the Broncos can continue working on this whole "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" mentality of what they used against Dallas and with what they used against the Chargers, then I don't foresee it being a blowout. Should I say? I mean. It's really hard, certainly, to probably still pick against or pick for the Broncos, knowing everything that we have about a losing streak. But that said, this is the most important game, not just under Vic Fangio's tenure, but probably the most important Kansas City Chiefs Denver Bronco game that we have had, like even during the Manning years.
Well, you hit on a good point, Cameron. You said the weapons, and pass on to you, Mr. Buggins. Yeah,
weapons.
The weapons.
The weapons.
So, pass
Where's
on
Johnny's?
to you, pass on to you, Mr. Buggins. The weapons. This year, we're not outmatched by Kansas City. So this is definitely a very, like you said, it's hard to pick, to pick the Broncos, but it's definitely a very winnable game. And with the way we played, the way Vic Fangio has coached his defense against pass-heavy offenses, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, Justin Herbert and the Chargers, the Chiefs are very similar. And from watching film this previous week, the Chiefs are very, very, very pass-heavy, as we all know. And Vic Fangio so far has played a pretty good season against teams that are very pass-heavy. And Mr. Bargains, what do you think about last game that we need to carry into this game?
I think that's just winning at every facet of the game. I mean, we controlled the clock. We're just a complete team last week. We ran the ball. I know that might falter a little bit this week if Melvin actually isn't able to play, which is looking like he's pretty doubtful. But hopefully Boone can step in and really be that 1-2 punch that we were hoping. And just establish the running game is a big part of it, keeping Mahomes off the field, because at the end of the day, Mahomes is still Mahomes, and he could turn the game at any point. So you really want to run down the clock. You really want to contain them as much as possible, keeping them underneath you, and just like I'm okay with it being a boring game. Like, let's make it a boring game. And I think in the past we've made it very boring for them. I mean, Mahomes has not been astounding playing or at least playing Fangio so far. And I think as long as we're able to contain him and able to run the clock down enough, I think we have a really good shot now that our offense can be at least somewhat consistent.
Well, that takes away there's from what I watch. I watched the Kansas City and the Kansas City versus New York Giants game because I wanted the analysis of the Manning brothers, which I just started watching this week, and they're hilarious. Yeah, I can watch them all day. But from listening to their analysis in the Chiefs game and the Chiefs playing, you took away one of the keys of the game for the offense, which is running the ball. And I think, with Melvin Gordon being doubtful, I don't think he will play. But we have Demarius Crockett. In the preseason, he showed flashes, and he can pick up some yards, and we get to see Mike Boone. So I think we're okay with that. But the other thing you mentioned, which is very important, which I took notes on and wrote down for an offensive key, Glenn, is time of possession. Keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field. Off the field. One thing the Manning brothers constantly used was they're playing zone. They're trying to test the quarterback's patience because, like you said, Mr. Boggs, a boring game. Quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, they want to get the ball going deep. They want these big chunk plays. And what defenses do is they test these quarterbacks, say, hey, can you want to take that deep pass? We're going to test you, but you're going to have to dink and dunk and throw it down. How important is time of possession, Glenn, for the Broncos, who can do it going against the Chiefs?
Oh, I mean, time of possession is massive. And, it started off just even the beginning of the season, that the game against the Giants, in holding the ball. And it was the time of possession was one of our biggest issues that we had last year, that the defense would play well. We'd get on the field, and 2 plays later, we'd be turning the ball over or 3 and out and a punt. and it's impossible for even the best defense to maintain their performance at a high level when they're out there. I mean, look at the Cowboys game. We had the ball on offense 2/3 of the time, so time of possession is huge. And I'm looking. I have the stats open here from the Chargers game, and by all intents and purposes, we truly dominated in that game. And we talk about our weapons, and if you think about it, our leading receiver was Javonte Williams. Our Teddy Bridgewater only had 129 yards. I mean, he was in limited duty, but 129 yards passing. Locke only had 26, so 155 yards passing. We ran the ball 33 times. Between Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, and Cortland Sutton, there were 6 receptions between the 3 of them. So, and we dominated. So I think we're seeing what our strengths are and what we need to do. And if we can get that running game going and then pepper in these weapons from on the receiving side, man, this could be a really strong performance. I mean, I'm shocked that we're such underdogs this Sunday.
Yeah, and I think, when we talk about the defensive side of things, and with the amount of weapons that Kansas City has, and especially with Vic Fangio, I think that one of the things that has made it a little bit easy with, should I say Vic Fangio and scheming up against the Kansas City Chiefs, is this ability that what has been one of the biggest positives. Now, granted, it's been unfortunate at times this season, and at sometimes even during his tenure, but at every single point, it seems whenever they play the Kansas City Chiefs, it feeds right into the biggest positive of a Vic Fangio defense, which is eliminating the big play. And that is probably one of the biggest things. And it's one of the reasons why, even with the Los Angeles Chargers, it fed much into that hand as well, because Herbert, whether it could be offensive coordinator issues, Herbert, being a little bit conservative at times, throwing, short passes, whatever. But Herbert is also a gunslinger, a lot like Patrick Mahomes. And so it's one of those deals where when you play stuff stylistically like that, you have the ability to really just eliminate all of that damage. And so, I mean, with that, I think it's one of the reasons why it's going to be such a close game. And it's always been a close game, really, when Vic Fangio has been at the helm. It's just those 2 or 3 little things that just have unfortunately bit the Broncos in the butt. And
Death by inches?
Literally, death by inches.
Now, Mr. Broncos, Cameron mentioned a good point, which was the next point, which is defense. Looking at the statistics, no receiver on the Chargers had more than 100 yards receiving. No player on the offense had more than 100 yards rushing. So in totality, no single person had over 100 yards rushing. No single receiver had over 100 yards receiving.
Not only that, Isaiah, on the rushing side, I don't mean to cut you off, but you're good. Herbert was the leading rusher at 36 yards. Eckler was at 31. So, I mean, 72 yards rushing from the Chargers when you have a running quarterback and you have Austin Eckler. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so Vic Fangio did something good. So, Mr. Boggins, in your opinion, what does Vic Fangio need to do on the defensive side? I mean, the way they played Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert, like we said, arguably 2 top 5 quarterbacks in the league who can put up yards easily. Patrick Mahomes is up there as well. How does Vic Fangio approach Patrick Mahomes this game?
I think it's all about containment. I think you have to run 2 safeties high the whole time, which, I mean, Fangio usually does anyways. You have to bracket Tyreek Hill. Like, you can't just run straight up man on Tyreek Hill with no help over the top. Like, if it doesn't matter who you put on. I don't care how much anybody in here loves Patrick Surtain. He is not going to keep up with Tyreek Hill. So you have to bracket him, and you have to keep Kelsey underneath. And now Kelsey is also one of the best at Kjack, yards after catch. And so that's another thing where you kind of have to, I don't want to say give that to them at certain points, but you'll take that over the top any day of the week. And they don't necessarily have what I was really impressed with the in the Chargers game was how much we were able to contain Eckler, because I thought that was going to be a main problem. But the speed that we've gotten at linebacker has really helped contain that more than I was thinking it was going to. So that was really great to see. I don't necessarily I'm not necessarily as worried about any of the running backs. They do have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm not sure if he's back yet, but if he is an all-purpose back, and so that could potentially be something to worry about, but not as much as Austin Eckler in my mind. So I think like I said before, it's really all about containing the big play and make sure that doesn't happen, because once that starts, that's when it's just going to unravel, because Broncos are not built to come from behind, and if we give them that opportunity, we have a real big problem in our hands.
And you make a good point. Excuse me. And that was one thing I was thinking of, was in the past we'd play Patrick Mahomes a certain way, and Dave brings up a good point. The turnover battle is definitely important, and we've done much better this year with forcing turnovers. We had 2 last game, 4 sacks if Van Brown is counted. But the personnel that we
Chiefs
have
also
now,
lead the league, or not? Sorry, they're like second in the league in turnovers as far as not producing turnovers, but giveaways. So that's something that we could also potentially take advantage of as well.
Yes, and then this goes back to what we mentioned earlier, which you just said, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But the personnel we have is different than the personnel we've had the last couple of years. Last year, I think we held Patrick Mahomes under 200 yards passing. I think, we gave up a couple big plays, but now we have, Pat Surtain, who I think ran the second fastest so far in the league this year, Baron Browning and Kenny Young. And watching the film with the Broncos against the Chargers, Austin Eckler, when he ran his routes and Justin Herbert dumped the ball to him, Baron Browning was not behind at all. Baron Browning was right on his hip. And I've seen people post a couple of videos of Baron Browning's twitch and his reaction with backs coming out the backfield, or him covering slot receivers or tight ends out on routes. Baron Browning is actually a really good pass from the last game, really good at covering the backs. So I'm curious to see how we rotate coverage between Travis Kelce, and that's one thing I've been really worried about, because watching film, Kyle Fuller got very, very lucky against the Chargers. There was several plays where the pass rush bailed out Kyle Fuller, and Justin Herbert just wasn't able to get there to the player that Kyle Fuller was guarding and covering, and the pass rush bailed us out, so he had to scramble, or we got a sack. But in this game, and I tweeted this, Patrick Mahomes may not miss those plays. He may not miss those players. So I'm curious as to what you guys think. Who's covering Travis Kelce in the as a slot cornerback? I mean, Vic Fangio mentioned he could play some and cover Travis Kelce, but does that mean who's covering Tyreek Hill in the boundary? Do we want to put Caden Stearns there if Kjack comes back? Nate Hairston has improved and played it really good this season when he's in there. So what are you guys thinking? Who's filling these positions?
I think for me, it's such a fascinating dilemma, because the one thing with this Denver Broncos defense is you have a lot of different options, it seems, that they can potentially go, which really wasn't the case with what they had last season. And I think with this, it'll be really interesting to see what the Broncos do. I think for me, there's 2 options that we can probably actually maybe even 3, but the top 2 options for me are Pat Surtain and Baron Browning. And one of the reasons why I think it's Pat Surtain is because, well, for one, we didn't know that he would be assuming cornerback 1 at this particular point in the season as of right now. I mean, he was going into this upcoming season plan to potentially be the nickel corner, or even, as we've been coining a term, tight end buster. Like, he was planning to be that tight end buster, and we've been hoping to see that at some particular point in time. Along with that, every single time the Denver Broncos have played the Kansas City Chiefs, Tyreek Hill has been almost a non-factor.
That is true.
And along with that, that has opened up so many possibilities for Travis Kelce, which has been the true safety net along with Pat Mahomes. And so if you can have Pat, probably the best version of Pat, let's be honest, or second best. I don't want to slight Pat Coyote in any way. But I mean, the point is that he has so much height and he has so much length and speed that if you put him on Travis Kelce, you can potentially have something there that maybe kind of to the likes of what Aqib Talib had back when he was guarding Gronkowski, like those types of situations. Baron Browning, that's the fascinating one for me because he's a guy that was compared very favorably to Micah Parsons, maybe even more athletically in his athleticism coming out of college. You talked about his twitch, you talked about his movement for him as a linebacker. Back on the podcast, on the Mainly Broncos podcast, I talked about how he's a blend of DJ Williams and Al Wilson, almost like he's just a freakishly gifted athletic linebacker. You see his pass rush ability, you see his ability to cover. If you can put a guy like that with what we had seen, even with Austin Eckler, that's a very viable option too. And then the third is sort of a wild card under the radar option, but Caden Stearns. I think Caden Stearns is a very interesting one to throw into the mix as well. Sorry to go a little bit long-winded there.
No,
But
you're right. I agree. And Bree, welcome, Bree. Thank you for coming on the chat twice. And this stat has been rolling around Twitter all week. Patrick Surtain reached a top speed of 22.07 miles per hour on his 7-yard pick six, the fastest speed by a defensive player as a ball carrier over the last 5 seasons. Now, with this statistic coming up, I have no worries that if he had to guard Tyreek Hill on the boundary, he can do what he can. If Patrick Mahomes scrambles and he does this thing where he throws, he scrambles for 3 seconds, that gets harder. But another, Ronald Darby has also stepped up and is also really fast. But what you said with the Baron Browning, when I watched the film,
Put that back up, actually, I say, while you're talking, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, Baron Browning, when I watched the film, and it said Baron Browning was with Vic Fangio 15 to 20 minutes a day watching film, and he was texting him asking for tips. When you go back and watch the Chargers game, the communication between Kenny Young and Baron Browning, you can see the mass improvement between those two. They were all over the field together. I mean, and one play on defense, Baron Browning was directing traffic with Kenny Young, telling him to go here. Kenny Young was going backwards, doing the same thing. And on one play, I think Justin Herbert motioned Keenan Allen, and it's synchronized. Baron Browning and Kenny Young called an audible at the exact same time. So their communication has definitely picked up, and their synchronization has definitely picked up.
I mean, that was always the best case scenario too with Baron Browning. Like, he was very raw coming out of Ohio State, but like the athleticism was there, and now everything is clicking. And because I was worried at first because it just seemed like injuries kept happening and it kept happening early, and I was like, man, this is going to really stunt his like learning growth as well, even on top of him being raw in the first place. So what he's done so far has surpassed what I ever thought he was going to be able to do this early.
It's I know a lot of people are down on Vic. They think he's old school. They're not a fan. But can you imagine as a 22 or 23-year-old Baron Browning having one-on-one access on a daily basis? With the guy who coached the Dome Patrol in New Orleans. I mean, just what his potential is under Vic Fangio and learning with these sessions, and the fact that even if Vic can't answer the question, he'll tell him where in the tape he's got the question, and Vic will immediately start looking and get right back to him. I mean, and I'm sure it's happening with the other youngsters too. I mean, yeah, it's when I see Browning out there, I mean, he just looks the part too. It's even the 56. I mean, is there? I mean, these first year players that we have are just so exciting, and the contributions that they're all making. We're talking about the defense now, but I mean, just on both sides of the ball is just astronomical.
I was talking to Johnny about that earlier, and I was saying these young guys seem like they bring a certain energy, and they've energized the older guys. I mean, Justin Simmons this year is flying around. I watched Justin Simmons make a tackle where he came up and sealed the edge on the. It was a handoff on the right side, and he sealed the edge and made the tackle. I mean, it's energy from a free safety that you don't get around the rest of the NFL. A free safety, now that's something Kjack would do, coming up and filling the hole, but Justin Simmons came from the other side of the field from his other position, sealed the edge, and then made a tackle. That's the energy these guys are bringing. Even Quinn Miners is bringing that energy on the offensive line. When you watch the replays and the film and stuff, this offensive line is hyped and they're energetic. They're getting pancakes left and right. And when their running back gets 6, 7, 8 yards, these guys are ready on the ball, breaking from the huddle, sprinting. So these young guys have lit a fire under the Broncos, and it's starting to gel. It's starting to gel together, And you mentioned Caden Stearns, Cameron. The reason why I like to see him play the slot cornerback is because the way he played against Dallas in that interception, the way he baited Dak Prescott, a veteran quarterback who people had in the MVP conversation, comeback player of the year, as a rookie, baiting Dak Prescott and daring him to do it and then picking him off. When he did that, and he played a great robber this last game and really filled Kjack's role very well. So we have plenty of options to play in that position. But Cameron, you getting ready to say something?
No, I was just gonna say, along with the youth of this team, it sort of just has also reinvigorated that much more the minute they traded Von Miller. Bradley Chubb talked about it during this week of how it was a sense of urgency. When you trade a player like Von Miller, it Glenn brought it up on one of the podcasts. It's just like when it creates that sense of urgency, no job or no player's job is safe at that particular point when you trade a franchise type player. But along with that, their pass rush had been pretty darn good even when Von Miller was there. And so the minute they even traded that, you have those opportunities. And so with the type of youth that you've been seeing from guys like Jonathan Cooper, it only just feeds into that. And so especially with potentially a primetime game, you're looking at it from the standpoint of, creating pressure from a unit that has really established that they are pretty darn good in getting to the quarterback even without Von Miller. And if you can be able to create turnovers due to that and contain Patrick Mahomes, I know it's such a tall order to contain him inside the pocket. But I mean, it's almost like the Aaron Rodgers dilemma. You would much rather contain him in the pocket than have him be off script and do the things that he wants to do that he does best. I mean, we all know the left-handed throw that he did when Von Miller went to go close on him. I mean, I know it all too well because our fan-sided site has a T-shirt that of the left-handed Mahomes throw that's up for sale. So, but I mean, if you can potentially contain Patrick Mahomes inside the pocket, you will be able, I think, to create a lot of turnover-worthy plays. Which, by the way, before I hopped on, Pat Mahomes leads in the top 5 or something in a Pro Football Focus of turnover-worthy plays. I think he's got like 10 of like turnover-worthy plays.
Mm-hmm.
So and of course, along with that, he's falls in line with their big play ability. I think he's got 7 big plays, big play throws or whatever. But he's got like 10 turnover-worthy plays, and so even with that too, I mean, honestly, if you were looking at the whole body of work of the season, Justin Herbert's outplayed him most of the season.
Yes,
Mahomes has sort of came back down to earth a little bit. So I mean, if you can be able to create some of the stuff and keep him contained, I mean, you might be able to open the door for some potential turnovers, which the Broncos have not had a fair enough of against the Kansas City Chiefs. They've been keeping it close to the vest. They've been doing a good job of that, but they haven't really had that crucial turnover when they played the Chiefs. It always reminds me of when the Broncos played the New England Patriots, and they just could never get the that very key turnover. And then when the Peyton Manning era came, they started getting those key turnovers and key turnovers and key turnovers.
Before we read Bree's comment, one player that went underrated that hasn't been mentioned this week when I watched was Draymond Jones. The pressure that Draymond Jones put on Justin Herbert throughout the entirety of the game went I wouldn't say unnoticed, but was silent. A lot of those pocket movements that Justin Herbert made this past week was because the pressure was coming from the interior from Draymond Jones. So just a shout out to Draymond Jones for definitely stepping it up and really, really putting that pressure. And another person,
we know you're watching Draymond. Shout out.
That we talked about, McTelvin Agim.
Mm-hmm.
His technique is really impressive. His hand fighting is really, really impressive. And Johnny and I were talking about that. He had his one sack. But just his hand fighting, I think if Deshaun Williams doesn't come back next year, I think McTelvin Agim's got himself a starting spot if he can earn it and play the way he's been playing consistently. Because I was very impressed with him in the Chargers game.
It would be interesting to see him in I don't know if he would necessarily start in Fangio's system because I don't know where you would put him. Like if you were going to put him you're not going to put him at like 0 with like Purcell. He's not big enough for that. But I could see him. I could see him being a very good like rotational effect on the line for sure though.
Yeah, no, it was just his sack was just so impressive because it was like he didn't just pocket was collapsing and he got the sack. No, he earned the sack. Like he created
Yes.
the rep and he shaded the block and got to Justin Herbert. So it wasn't
It
like
looked
it
like
was
practice.
yeah,
It looked like practice, like they were going through drills.
Well,
and he just,
but it just looked he made it look easy.
yeah, and I had the in-laws here when that game was happening, and he kept telling me they're going to score. He kept saying the Chargers are going to score on the drive. You guys are going to lose. And McTelvin Ajim got that sack, and he goes, "Wow, that hurt me." So he, just McTelvin Ajim was definitely impressive. To Bree's comment, she says Shelby's got Hill. Kelsey definitely not the player of the past. Will be interesting to see if Casey targets Surtain's side at all. Could be a non-issue with whomever he covers. I agree. I think Patrick Surtain definitely, if he's guarding Tyreek Hill, I think one-on-one maybe, but I think Patrick Surtain definitely has the talent. He has the pedigree, and I think he's developing the name where sort of like Jalen Ramsey, he can erase a player from the field and definitely take you out of the game where the quarterback doesn't even look to your side. What do you guys think, Glenn?
Oh, no doubt about it. And I did want to make one other point about, when I talked about these young players contributing, and Cam mentions Jonathan Cooper, a 7th round pick. Hats off to George Payton. And I know we're all, bowing at the, in front of him. But, I wanted to make one other point. He brought 2 other guys in via trades. He got Cooper as a 7th round pick, but he got Weatherly and a 7th for a 7th. He got Kenny Young and a 7th for a 6th. I mean, these are 2 major contributors, 2 guys that I think everyone in Broncos country hope remain with the team past this year. I mean, there is
Stephen Weatherly had a sack, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, and he wearing the goggles, and just I'm not going to indulge Rich and push his angry aviator, but we have way more depth going into this game than we have in recent years against the Chiefs, especially on the defense. And so there are, the fact that when Cam was going through it, he had 3 different options on 3 different very viable options on Kelsey. They're going to mix those guys up as well, and then Bree makes a point that Surtain is running at 22 miles an hour down the field, with that interception, so we're in such a better position to compete against these guys, and they have shown vulnerability this year. So, hats off to Peyton for bringing these young players into the mix and these other veterans that somehow he was able to fleece these other teams for.
Yeah, they're definitely vulnerable. They beat the Giants by 3 points. So that's the game I was watching. They beat the Giants by 3 points. And we beat the Giants by more than 3 points. So, they definitely are vulnerable. We have the depth, we have the talent, we have the speed that we haven't had before when going up against the Chiefs. And like you said, Stephen Weatherly, Kenny Young is absolutely incredible. And I think almost all of Broncos country agrees he needs to be on this team. He's his instincts, and he's very, very smart. But that intellect and the mentality and the mental matches his physical. So a lot of times you get a lot of players where it's hard, where you got a guy who's physically gifted, he's got all the athleticism, but he just can't get it on the mental aspect. Versus you have guys who have the mental aspect who's very smart, but they just don't have the physicality. And Kenny Young seems to be a guy who has the mental aspect of it, and he's really picked up Vic Fangio's scheme really well, and has seemed to flourish in it. He's all over the place, doing fantastic things. So those guys that George Payton brought in, he seems to not be able to miss so far. And even I'm not sure if Nate Harrison was under his purview. I'm not sure if that Nate Harrison was brought in under George Payton, but Nate Harrison, whenever he's played for the Broncos, has really stepped up and really made some really good plays. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets rotated in to cover Travis Kelce. But Cameron, I had a question for you. Because you mentioned this earlier. If Patrick Surtain goes on the inside and covers Travis Kelce, who's going to cover? Who would you say would cover Tyreek Hill on the outside, on the boundary?
That's your $1 million question. Do you put what is it, Ronald Darby? Do you put, because we know Kyle Fuller's going to end up staying probably in the nickel. So it's one of those options to where, do you put Ronald Darby out there? Now, the one thing that makes this such a conundrum is the Caden Stearns dilemma now, because if you do put him in that rover, you have that extra help, you have that extra responsibility, that extra safety help, if you will. And something too that, not touched on too, is the Broncos were supposed to, in air quotes, do a whole lot of dime package this year. And we've not really seen a whole lot of that. So along with that, there could potentially be a lot of help defense the moment that you see something like that, with the potential of a dime defense. So we could see the Broncos going up against the Chiefs do some of that. Now that can cause a lot of problems potentially in run defense for the Kansas City Chiefs to potentially run the football, which is probably, you don't want to fall asleep on for the Broncos' sake, that, even though the Kansas City Chiefs have been really bad in running the football, you don't want to lose to something that the Kansas City Chiefs have been really bad at, and that would be running the football. And so you don't want to fall asleep with that in that regard.
One thing that was mentioned earlier. Go ahead, Mr. Boggins.
No, I just think I think it's exactly right, and I think it's important that the Chiefs don't push the Broncos out of something that they're trying to do. Like, I think it's important to get the pressure on the quarterback without blitzing a ton, because I think you open up a lot more, because Patrick Mahomes can do a lot of different things that might be dangerous. If you're trying to blitz him, he will find someone open real quick. So I think it's very important to, if we rush 4, you're getting home with 4. Like, it's just very important that we don't get compromised outside of what we're trying to scheme.
Agreed. One thing you mentioned, Cameron, I hope this didn't slip. Yeah, one thing you mentioned was what I was going to ask you, but I think we know the answer to. It seems that Vic Fangio from the press conference, he's focusing more. I wouldn't say focusing, but he's putting more focus on Travis Kelce than Tyreek Hill. And it seems like, if I'm correct, he might have Justin Simmons over the top help Ronald Darby or whoever the boundary corner is against with Tyreek Hill, and just have Pat Surtain one-on-one and Baron Browning with Travis Kelce. Do you think he's putting more of a focus or an emphasis on Travis Kelce than he is Tyreek Hill? Is that because, like you said in the past, Travis Kelce's the one that's carved us up versus Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I mean, if you look at, every single matchup, Tyreek Hill hasn't really been the one that beat us, except for, some few games here and there where, the Broncos defense has shown multiple brain farts every single game, so, I mean, but I mean, it's true. I mean, the Travis Kelce has been the guy that has, stifled that Broncos defense time and time again. We all remember the pathetic, tight end screen that the Chiefs ran, and Travis Kelce ran wide open into the end zone. I mean, he's a unicorn at tight end, and if you don't, lose, if you can certainly contain Tyreek Hill, you don't want to lose sight of the fact that there's, a unicorn at tight end with Travis Kelce. So it's just, I think it's just one for the Broncos' sake that they still match up schematically with it, and so I think that it's just something that, for the Broncos' sake, I think they're very fortunate with the fact that they do have guys like Baron Brown and Caden Stearns and Pat Surtain as potential options to neutralize it.
Yeah, I think what Vic Fangio is doing is he's saying we're going to take away Travis Kelce and put more focus on him, and where we dare you to try and throw it to Tyreek Hill over the top. I think he's saying, not necessarily daring, but he's saying we're okay with you trying that. We're just going to make sure you can't get these short. Like Mr. Boggins said, Travis Kelce is really good at yards after catch. We want to make sure we take those away, because on 3rd and 6, those yards after catch become daggers. Now you're in field goal position. Now you're in the red zone because of those yards after catch. I think Vic Fangio is saying, hey, we can have Justin Simmons help the boundary corner on the side with Tyreek Hill. That's okay, but we're going to make sure that you can't use Travis Kelce. So I think they're going to make Patrick Mahomes. I think what they want to do is make the Chiefs run the ball. And Bree comes in perfect with the defensive key that I had, which was, she says, anybody know off the top of their head how many QB pressures Denver had against Chargers? LOL. Make Mahomes runs for his life. Take away his toys. Sounds like fun, which is exactly what I was saying. You take away Travis, you take away Tyreek, and you make them run the ball. And then the key that Mr. Boggins said is when you rush 4, those 4 got to get home. If you don't have to, because Patrick Mahomes like Justin Herbert and these other dynamic quarterbacks are very good at reading the blitz and playing off the blitz. When you blitz, you're leaving a hole in the field open. That's where Tyreek Hill comes and sits in the zone on a 6-yard curl, or they have a crossing route and they sit in the zone and they go for 15 yards after the catch. Or Travis Kelce runs a quick seam because you blitz that inside linebacker and that side of the field is open. We can do blitzes, but like against the Chargers, we have to disguise it very well. And Mr. Barnes made a great point, what I agree with. If you're going to rush 4, those 4 need to get home. And I believe my key to the game for defense, the burden rests on them.
I just think if we're relying on coverage sacks, there's going to be a problem.
Agreed.
Like they're like we can't let they like to play yard ball out there. Like they are on the same page a lot of the times, and so. I mean, if you watch any of the like Monday Night Football with Peyton and Eli when Travis Kelce was on there, and they were asking about like, just some of the stuff you do out there is it just made up? And he's like, absolutely. Like some of the stuff they just point it breaks down. Right. You're just figuring out something. We can't wait that long. So we need to get home.
I can't find the total number of pressures, but we did have 3 sacks. We did have 10 QB hits. Bradley Chubb played less than 30 snaps, and every time Herbert went back for a pass, Chubb was in the backfield. He didn't touch him, but he was disruptive, and the fact that he's now going to be stronger, bodes well. It lends to the point that both you and Marcus were making, that these guys need to make these rushes work every time, and Chubb really looked good. I was a little nervous that he was coming back a little too soon, and like the first time, and sure enough, I was wrong.
Well, you took it right out of my mouth. That was the next thing I was going to say. Was Bradley Chubb? What one Vic Fangio did a good thing with the snap count was keeping him in there, getting him. And Vic Fangio said in the press conference he looked strong. That really helped him. But when he was in the backfield bringing pressures. Cameron, you're getting ready to say something?
Well, I was going to say to the Draymond Jones point we talked about earlier. I was looking it up too with Glenn, and something I just found out. I guess just overall by the team, Draymond Jones leads the entire team in pressures.
Interesting.
He leads the entire team pressures at 32. So wow. I think the most important thing that people need to understand is that sacks are a beautiful stat, for the national media and stuff like that to talk about it. It's a fine stat, but it goes way beyond the box score with stats like QB hits, pressures, QB hurries, that kind of thing. And so I think that Draymond Jones has really lived up to the hype. It's not going to show up at all in the stat sheet, but he's really lived up to the hype. And Chubb, we talked about it. He's been coming back. That was about as good of a game as you could have ever asked for Bradley Chubb, coming off of the injury that he had. And we talked about Teddy Bridgewater's confidence going into the Kansas City Chiefs game. Bradley Chubb's confidence now is at a great level right now going into that Kansas City Chiefs game, because he played great in a really small snap count size. And then now you're talking about potentially re-upping his snap count against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are going to be out their right tackle. Their right tackle, Lucas Niang, is going to be out.
Interesting.
And so that's a potential opening for the Broncos, to where you will have Bradley Chubb potentially see some opportunities. And of course, Joey decides to chime in just as I was talking about Draymond Jones.
Yeah.
What's up, Joey? Yeah. Welcome, Joey. Welcome to the NRW crew. And Big E Bronco, I got you. We're getting ready to come back to that. But you, Cameron, you've made a great transition to the injury report, the players you're getting back. And unfortunately, before we go into that, players like Draymond Jones and Bradley Chubb have helped bail out Kyle Fuller, especially in the last game, because those pressures where Justin Herbert had to step up in the pocket or maneuver or manipulate the pocket, where he wasn't maybe not necessarily see the players downfield, definitely helped get those negate those plays. But you said they're down their right tackle. I think from the way Vic Fangio was talking about, Bradley Chubb should start this game. His confidence should be at an all-time high. It's in Kansas City. It's for first place in the AFC West. It's a Sunday night game. You cannot script this better. You cannot script it better. They're down their right tackle, but from what it sounds like, we may be getting both of our starting tackles back. It sounds like we're getting both of our tackles back. Melvin Gordon's definitely a hit. But this definitely goes back to your comment, WizKid, when he says one thing I've noticed is that when we have Judy in the lineup, we are 4-1, and Judy definitely helps with just spreading the field, spreading the defense, and he really hasn't had that breakout game since he got back. Spreading the field, third down conversions, and red zone. I mean, just his route running. We're just waiting for his breakout game, and for all we know, this could be it. This could be it, because I mean, when you have the weapons, I mean, we talked about the Chiefs' weapons so much and how we're going to play the Chiefs, but we haven't talked about how hard it is for the Chiefs to play against our weapons, which hasn't been a conversation, really, a conversation to be had over the last few years. So, I mean, the Chiefs play, especially in the red zone, the Chiefs play man. We have the two best receivers in the NFL when it comes to man coverage. You do not want to press Jerry Jeudy or play man against Jerry Jeudy. That's one thing I do know. So we haven't talked about how hard it is for the Chiefs to play against our weapons. And, you know, like you mentioned, Glenn, 129 passing yards. Drew Lock had 40-something passing yards, and we dominated. We don't have to pass the ball. And people were complaining, you know, how they normally do about how these guys didn't get a lot of targets last game. I would rather take them not get a lot of targets and dominate and win the game we did than have them have a bunch of targets and lose. I mean, you want a balance, but just the idea that, hey, we can run the ball for over 100 rushing yards, have two dynamic backs, not have any passing yards, and win the game. So we can win either way. We have great receivers. We have great running backs. The offensive line has been run blocking so much better over the last few weeks. It's actually been really impressive.
Yeah, and to the Judy point, it just goes to show you how important he is to that lineup. You know, we talk so much about Bradley Chubb. We talk so much about, you know, how the sacks are a glorified stat, and how there's just certain things that go way beyond the box score. You know, Jerry Jeudy's presence alone goes way beyond the box score. You know, I mean, you know, one other stat I believe too of the Chargers game is I think the Broncos were like 8 of 11 on third down. Like they were, they were incredible on third down, and every single game, really, maybe aside from one, that Jerry Jeudy's been in this lineup, the third down conversion rate has been exponentially better when he's been in that lineup, and that is just by his presence alone. And oh by the way, Cortland Sutton was not in the Kansas City Chiefs game last year, and so I mean, now we're talking about all three of our weapons being in this Kansas City Chiefs game, where if by chance that the Broncos decide to use a single to use single coverage of man coverage, or, you know, to use some of the opportunities that they used in the red zone last year with Drew in that Kansas City Chiefs game, then you're looking at not just one option with what they had potential with Tim Patrick, but now you're talking about arguably one of the best 50-50 ball winners, like an 80-20 50-50 ball winner in Cortland Sutton, along with Tim Patrick. It's just it's setting up to be a really good situation, and that Cortland Sutton will be coming out, you know, guns a blazing, if you will, playing incredibly well. And I think that it's one that, you know, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the Broncos, you know, should run the ball, because they absolutely need to run the ball. But but it's one that if they need to, they have the weapons to get it done with on that outside with Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. The one thing that does worry me is, you know, it's very easy to get into a lull of those 30 rushing yards and stuff like that, but I would love to see shots down the field. We're not seeing We're not seeing any shots down the field, and especially with Cortland Sutton, the broadcast even talked about it. It was I think it was Adam Marcelletta talked about it in the Chargers game. You know, that as great as this is, they're still not taking enough shots down the field, and they aren't. Cortland Sutton is probably one of the best wide receivers of going down the field. I mean, we laugh, but I mean, Drew Lock's favorite target was Cortland Sutton down the field, and when Drew Lock was in the game, they go down the field with, you know, Cortland Sutton on a sideline pass. So I mean, it's just one that they have to potentially hit those. You know, my biggest worry is something that Big E Bronco did talk about, which was going back to his old self, and that's just something that they can't get cute. The Broncos cannot get cute and put themselves in a situation where, you know what, we're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, so let's play arena football with arena football.
No, that's one thing with boxing is that they always tell you bring your opponent into your game. Don't play into your opponent's game. So what the Broncos can't do is, the Chiefs want to get flashy and take shots down the field. We can get flashy too and take shots down the field. No. You need to stick to your game, and run the ball, smack them in the mouth, and keep pushing. That's what that high energy young crew needs to do. And Glenn, Avatar has a question for you.
Right?
Says,
No, does Browning
remind you of Al Wilson at all?
Well, it's an easy comparison to make because they share a number, but I think Browning is way more athletic. Wilson is, for me, it was more solid, but Browning seems more athletic. And that was the next comment I was hoping you'd pull up. Joey has it hit squarely on the head. We are not a good team needing to come back from any sort of a deficit, and a deficit against these guys that have the ability to put up points, almost at will when they're on.
3 points can turn to 21 like that. And go ahead, Mr. Boggins.
I was going to say, and what opens up the passing game is the run. You establish the run, that opens up. You play action. You're going to have open receivers, and you don't have to necessarily throw it, 30 yards down the field. With players like Jerry Jeudy, you hit him on a slant on a play action, that dude gone. You know what I mean? Like it's just about opening up these opportunities. My fear is that Shermer might get cute and try to go back to more a little more I don't know about pass happy, but like throw it more than we should be. We should be running down the clock. We should be keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field and really like corralling this game in our favor, because if they get ahead, we are not built to be making up points. So we need to be running the ball. We need to be establishing the run, and we need to be hitting. I mean, I will say maybe a couple downfield, but I still would just like to make it a boring game. Just like keep
NFC
that
West
offense
game.
off, just keep that
NFC
offense
West
off
game.
the field.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And
Remember a couple years ago at the home game against the Chiefs, it was a night game and the Broncos were deep in our own end and opted to go with the fake punt at that time. We can't make those types of decisions where we're trying to maximize our scoring opportunities by making major mistakes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the worst Broncos game I've ever watched, besides outside of regular season. You know the other one. Regular season was the Flacco game against the Chiefs. That was just like the worst thing I've ever watched, and it would just make me real sad inside.
But last year,
boring. When I say boring, I don't mean that. I don't mean that game. I mean like actually productive.
Offense and defense, I would say, is for the defensive side, listening to the Manning brothers, like you mentioned, Cameron, on Monday Night Football, or I think that was Mr. Boggins, when they had played those two high safeties, 9 times out of 10, they're playing into a zone. And what they said, the way they analyzed it was, when they're playing that two high safety, Teddy Bridgewater is a patient quarterback. We don't have to worry about the Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert's itching to get their arm warmed up and throw it deep. We don't have to worry about that. And one thing the Manning brothers said is just run the ball. Make them, because when you run the ball, not only does it open up play action, but the defense is going to get tired of you getting 5, 6, 7 yards. So those safeties are going to creep up. They're going to creep up. And what Teddy Bridgewater and Pat Shermer have to see is, hey, they're getting real tired of this run game. And the second they creep up, that's when you throw it over top. And on the defensive side, I completely lost my train of thought. What I was going to say on the defensive side.
I've been there.
Yes,
time of possession.
Right. Yep. Time of possession is very important. Keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field. If it's cold in Kansas City, or if it's snowing like it usually is in December, keep him cold. Keep them on that sideline cold. Keep their defense. Tire their defense out. Pull Quentin Miners. Pull him and let him blow somebody up just because they're tired and they're exhausted. They don't, they're tired of you running the ball. When they're tired of you running the ball, run the ball some more. Just keep. That's what I was gonna say. On the offensive side, the offensive plays we called for Drew Lock at the end of the first half when Javonte Williams got that score, and at the end of the fourth quarter, we just ran the ball and they could not stop the run. When Drew Lock was in towards the end and Javonte Williams got that score, that entire drive because we didn't trust Drew, we just ran the ball.
It was also smart.
We have to do that again. If they cannot stop the run, if they can't stop the run on first down, don't go empty backfield on first down. If you just got a 17-yard run, don't do that.
I think the blueprint for this game is very obvious. You need to hack the big boards on or at Arrowhead Stadium and play a Jackson Mahomes TikTok video. If you do that, then Patrick Mahomes will get really distracted, hate himself, and leave the game. I think that is what Fangio is planning to do. He hasn't said it in the pressers because he's old and he's
coach me. I get it.
Yeah. So I think that's what we're trying to do.
And the funny part is, since the season started, on the offensive keys, it has not changed. It's actually been the same thing every week. Run the ball. It has never changed from week 1 to now. It has not changed. Just run the ball.
Yeah. So I don't know what the weather's going to be like come nighttime, but the high on Sunday in Kansas City, 63 degrees. It's going to be a nice day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a night game, so if it's 63, right. It's not going to drop to the 20s.
Well, it certainly won't be like the game that I went to, which was the very famous Paxton Lynch and Pat Mahomes, game on New Year's where it was freezing cold. It won't be that one. I was going to talk about the point that Boggins made and talk about getting cute again.
Jackson Mahomes.
When you do that.
No.
Can that guy learn another dance move? I mean, honestly, go ahead.
That's the thing with TikTok. You create this trend that you do the exact same dance over and over and over again, and it idiotically becomes popular.
Yeah.
But when you play cute and you play tentative, it even feeds into Joey's point.
Yeah.
It shows that you can't play with the lead because you just don't trust your team in that regard. And you don't trust the simple fact that we can't go toe to toe with the Kansas City Chiefs. And the minute that you do that, you're going home. You're done. I mean, this isn't exactly like the Buffalo Bills going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Back when when they were at full strength. So I mean, we're talking about a team that is basically not exactly the Tennessee Titans as far as a true blueprint. But I mean, if you can truly just establish the running game and ground and pound and keep Pat Mahomes and Justin Herbert with what we'd seen last week off the field, Dak Prescott off the field, you will win the game. And also special teams. One of the most underrated plays of that entire game in the Chargers game was the punt by Sam Martin that got downed on the one. I mean, when you can have a special teams that is...
Was that Nate Harrison that got that?
Yep.
Yeah. Right off the bat, too. It set the tone.
Yeah. So
immediately.
And so it was just one that, if the Broncos can have a cohesive game on prime time with Aaron Rodgers on the couch and showcase that the Denver Broncos are a viable option that, this next offseason, then, I
Russell
think
Wilson. I have a question that I need help with because I've been thinking about this. Which one is better, a well-rested offense or a well-rested defense? Now, what I mean by that is keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field and coming back onto the field, he'll be well-rested. But is it better if our offense is on the field and our defense is well-rested? Which one do you guys think is...
Can I give a cop-out answer?
Yeah.
Did you say both?
That is
I was thinking the same thing. It's a cop-out answer, but I was thinking the same thing. Because if Patrick Mahomes is well rested, he's not going. But as an offensive player, you want to be on the field, running routes, getting warmed up. On defense, because you have to get warmed up and taking hits. On defense, your job is to hit. So I mean, that's just my question. I was like, well, we keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. They're coming off a bye. They're already well rested. But then again, with offense, you have to get into a rhythm. Is defense the same way, or is it less of a rhythm than it is offense?
I think it's less of a rhythm. I think it's more important for defense, personally. The value in having the defense off the field not only gets them, our guys, rested after, because it's going to be a lot of hard work. But having Mahomes, I don't care that he's getting rested and he's not on the field. There's a massive value in him being on the sideline and not having the ability to make these plays. And
that's actually common sense.
If we can have 35, 40 minutes that would be an absolute dream.
Yeah, if he's not on
possession,
the field,
that would be phenomenal.
Yep.
If he's not on the field, they're not scoring. So yeah, I guess I hear what you're saying. Go ahead, Cameron.
Well, I was going to say, I would say defense, just from the simple fact that what has been the consistent theme in these last 6 years, that defense has been the strong suit of this team.
Yep.
Defense has been the strong suit of this team. And what is the consistent theme that we've seen with this defense the last 6 years? That when the offense can't get the job done, the defense gets gassed. The defense gets tired. The defense gets gassed, and that's when you start to see the big plays start to unfold. And that for one cannot happen. And I think that's also another point that needs to be brought up with this Chiefs game is you cannot turn the ball over. You cannot turn the ball over. You cannot turn the ball over against the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, you can't turn the ball over anyway against any opponent, but especially the Chiefs, because the minute you turn the ball over against the Chiefs, they will turn those into points ASAP. Another point, as much as I would love a strong special teams effort from our field goal unit, you can't win with field goals against the Kansas City Chiefs. You can't win with field goals.
That's one thing the Manning brothers were saying when I was watching the game against the Giants. The Giants went for it on like fourth down twice and scored. And the Manning brothers were saying, they said, this is the Chiefs. Even though they were like 3 and 4 at the time, they weren't doing too high. They're like, this isn't a team that you want to kick. You want to kick field goals. You don't want to drive all the way down the field. And that goes back to my other point earlier when Dave said, when the turnover battle, we can win the turnover battle, but we have to finish. And that's something that that we're gonna have to. We were much better in the red zone last game. That's something that we're gonna be great in now. If we get a fumble or we get an interception, we can't go down and then just 3 plays and punt the ball 3-0. We cannot do that. We have to. If we get turnovers and we win the turnover battle, that's how you crush them, and that's how we've beaten the Chargers and the Cowboys' high-scoring offenses is when they punt the ball on 2 possessions in a row, or it's a turnover on downs, or they turn the ball over. Is in those games specifically, we ran down the field and scored, and then we went up 7-0. Then we went up 14-0. Just like that. Now they're playing from a two possession. Now they're playing 2 possessions behind. That's how we have to beat the Chiefs, because the hard part about beating the Titans, like you said, which is similar, is with the Broncos, is if we get, like in the Chargers game, if we get up 2 possessions and then we get the ball back, we can that time of possession comes in handy. We can just run the ball and take out half a whole quarter without you even getting back on the field, and you're still down 2 possessions. That's how you have to beat the Chiefs. And then if they go down and score, you go down and score again. Now they're playing 2 possessions behind. Now they're playing that panicked rush offense, and that's when Vic Fangio can call his zones and call his panic playing off and let the play stay in front of you and saying, hey, you got to play from behind. We don't. We can rush 3 and drop back 8. And Peyton Manning said himself, I hated playing against defenses where they only rush 3 and drop back 8. And in that game against the Giants, Patrick Mahomes threw an interception and struggled when they rushed 3 and dropped back 8, and that was in the red zone. So that's where we have to play, where we have to make them play from behind. But they can come back. We cannot allow them to come back.
No, I mean, yeah. And especially with I think that's what makes the addition of Kyle Fuller being used as a pass rusher on some of the plays has been a little bit beneficial.
He's really good at tackling.
And I think that's been one of the more underrated moves, talking about moving Kyle Fuller to the slot, is that his ability to create those pass rush abilities and pass rush opportunities, or should I say extra pass rush opportunities from him, because he's such a sure tackler. There was so much hesitation from my point of him moving to the slot, but I mean, he's certainly not panned out in the first half of the season, but the last half of the season, he's really come along strong. He really has.
And that's another. And I said, and I mentioned this to Johnny, and I said, I think that's why Vic Fangio keeps him around, is because one thing he likes is cornerbacks who can tackle. And what I will say is, oh look, Mr. Boggins is the Dark Knight now. But what I will say is that one thing about Kyle Fuller can tackle very well. He's made some good open field tackles. I watched him against the Chargers game in the film. He met running backs in the hole, and like you said, coming off, I think was it against the Chargers, or was it against, I can't remember what team we were playing against. He motioned and followed the slot receiver in motion and blitzed off the edge, alpha motion, and it was actually really impressive. And like you said, that's an underrated thing. But moving on to the last segment before we close out, we go into the predictions. So, Cam, I've got your name down first on the predictions. What is your score prediction for the Sunday night football game for number 1 in the AFC West? A Sunday night game against the Kansas City Chiefs. What is your prediction?
Well, so far I am 2-1 when predicting that the Broncos will lose. So we'll start out with that. But for everything that we talked about, there are valuable reasons why the Broncos could be potentially in this game. There are valuable reasons why the Broncos could win this game. And that might sound crazy, but there are valuable reasons. That said, there's no evidence for me to go off of everything in the last 11, game losing streak for me to be convinced of something that can happen. You certainly want to be, the
Optimistic.
one. Yeah, you certainly want to be optimistic. You certainly want to be the one that it was like, oh, you know what? I predicted the Broncos to win this game. You certainly want to be the one like Zach Seegers to potentially spoil, what he said in our podcast. Predicting the Broncos to beat the Chiefs. He predicted the Broncos to beat the Chiefs. He also predicted the Broncos to beat the Chargers. So, he brought up great reasons, and it was a lot of the reasons we certainly brought up. But it was just one that when you have an 11-game losing streak, there's just not a whole lot of evidence to go off of. So, because of that, I think that the Chiefs will come out on top. However, one thing I will say, if it's a defensive game from start to finish, that plays strongly into the Broncos' hands.
Absolutely.
And if they can do that, then the Broncos will be in from this game from start to finish. And the one thing I'm still a little bit uneasy about is, does the Broncos have enough offense to put them over the top in a defensive battle to win that game against the Kansas City Chiefs? We all know who would have the upper hand in that particular battle. You want to give the upper hand to the more firepower offense in that regard. So I have it only 20-13 Chiefs.
20-13. So Dave Full Glassman comes in with his optimism, and he says 23-17 Broncos. And I believe there was another one. Big E Bronco says 34-17 Chiefs, just because Andy Reid doesn't lose after a bye, which is a good statistic. Mr. Boggins comes in. I believe his internet is messing up. He says Chiefs 69 and Broncos 2, just because when I bet against the Broncos, they win. Avatar comes in and he says 19-12 Broncos.
Avatar's got like a volleyball score. But
Glenn, what's your prediction?
I have similar success as Cam in every time I think the Broncos are going to lose, they seem to win. So
Right.
I'm going to stick with what I said last night. I'm going with the Chiefs. I do think that there's a great possibility that it's going to go our way, but just to keep things consistent, I'm going Chiefs 31-27.
High scoring game. WizKid comes in. He says, hot take. We win 28-17. I like that score.
If they win 28-17, you will see so many playoff hot takes from Broncos country, and you will see me do so many different victory dances because of this Javonte Williams tweet that just went off today.
Now, if Javonte Williams for some reason trucks Tyrann Mathieu wide open 1-on-1, your Twitter's going to blow up.
Yeah.
If for some reason there's a play where it's Tyrann with Honey Badger versus Pookie Williams 1-on-1 in the open field, and Javonte Williams just runs him over. Good God, Cameron! I can't tell you what your Twitter's going to. You might get verified immediately.
Well, I mean, what I might end up doing is where I might send it to the Photoshop video crew and do the run that Javonte Williams had against Miami and Photoshop the safety of Tyrann Mathieu, and that's exactly what happened. If that's exactly what happened, should I say, of Javonte, trucking Tyrann Mathieu, or even Daniel Sorensen for that matter, or Juan Thornhill. But
Daniel Sorensen might be the safety weak link. He hasn't been as good and productive as he has this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if Pat Shermer dialed up some plays to pick on him. But my prediction is 21-17 Broncos. I think the Chiefs score twice and kick a field goal, but I think Javonte Williams has a touchdown. I think Cortland Sutton has a touchdown. And I think Jerry Jeudy has a touchdown. And I think one thing we missed out on that we often always forget because we have such dynamic receivers is we have some big tight ends. No offense, 6'4", Alberto 6'5". I don't know why we don't run more seam routes.
That'd be to Noah.
So we have some big tight ends, and I think Jerry Jeudy can have his breakout game. But so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 predicted losses, 3 wins. But the people who predicted losses were because when they predict the Broncos lose, we win. So it's kind of a reverse prediction.
So I got to give Cam an update on his views now. We're over 52,000. It's gone up 7,000 just since we started the show.
Cameron, you started something.
I did.
You better believe during the game there's gonna be a whole bunch of Chiefs fan tweeting you.
Oh, if not already.
You know what I think the best part of it is that you didn't tag him in there.
He just saw it and responded.
He was searching for his own name.
He took offense to that. I love it. It was fantastic.
But he wasn't a jerk about it. He was cool. You know, I think everybody, I mean, who doesn't respect what he's done to turn not only his life but his career around? I mean, the guy's phenomenal.
Yeah, and the fact that he's interacting with fans and he's having conversations with them. I mean, it's always pretty cool when you have a. He said, "Mute that combo, Cam." He says, "Cam, remember me when you're Twitter famous." Joey says, "Mute that combo. Thank me later."
Well, I was just gonna say for Boggins, at least I would spell something phonetically correct. But no, it was a blast, and you touched on certainly a score. I want to bring back a bold prediction that I did from last week, and I also did for this, this week, and that is I think that Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton will have a combined 150 yards. So and with that, I think that one touchdown to Cortland Sutton and 1 touchdown to Jerry Jeudy. I'm bringing it back.
And I say 1 rushing touchdown for 21-17. I agree with you, and I think
Boggins takes umbrage with your comment, Cam.
I know.
And I think for defense, I think Bradley Chubb gets a sack. I think Draymond Jones gets a sack because he's earned it. And I also think Justin Simmons and Patrick Surtain both get an interception each. Quick question. Is Kjack playing this game?
He is. At least it seems that way. And he's also a little bit of a Pro Bowl update. He's still leading.
Pro Bowl votes.
The Pro Bowl votes, which, I mean, if you had that on your bingo card, congratulations.
I did not predict that, but congratulations to Kjack. He seems like he's going to the Pro Bowl this year. And I wonder how that, if he decides if we extend him or if not, if he goes to free agency, that's definitely going to help him get some money for free agency to come back to the Broncos 1 year, get a Pro Bowl, and go out there and test the market. So he's definitely earned it. He's definitely rocking it. So thanks to him.
Boggins out here saying that Joe stinks, and he was the one that had Wi-Fi issues. And
he said, "Hey Joey, this show sucks. Let's bail."
Well, it wasn't my fault that you mentioned Dark Knight Rises, Isaiah. It wasn't my fault that Bane decided to hack the the Wi-Fi password and kick Batman out. It wasn't my fault.
He was born in darkness. But guys, we're getting ready to head out. We thank Cameron for definitely coming in. He's Twitter famous, so he was able to bless us with his presence today on Nothing Rhymes. So we definitely appreciate that. Yeah, that was perfect. So Glenn, we definitely thank you for stepping in for Johnny today because Johnny's a piece of crap. Yeah, I said it, Johnny. So when you get back and watch this, know that I know you're a piece of crap. I love you, Barbara, and the kids. Johnny, you're a piece of crap.
That's assuming Glenn, Johnny gets this far into the show.
So, Glenn, thanks for stopping by. Mr. Boggins, thank you for coming in for the time you were in before you went time. Bravo 6 going dark. So we appreciate you coming in. Guys, thank you for coming in and watching another episode of Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue. We hope to see all of you on Sunday. Don't forget our Tuesday podcast of Broncos Talk with Richie and a 6'10" Mexican at 4 p.m. Pacific time. I said Western. I now see what you're talking about. 4 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Mountain time, 6 p.m. Central time, and 7 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays. On Thursdays, we have our flagship podcast of MHRT with Mundungus Creevy, Glenn Hauser, 6'10" Mexican, and Mr. Boggins at 4 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, and 7 p.m. Eastern time. And every Friday is Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue. 4, 5, 6, 7, same times. And on this Sunday, don't forget to tune into The Neighborhood our pregame podcast before the big Chiefs game, Sunday night game, the whole world watching, the whole country's watching. And this is where the Broncos come out and play and really show. I think this is their Ravens redemption game, where that was their test to see if they were about that life. And now there's another game where they get to prove whether they're about that life. So don't forget to join us. Excuse me. Don't forget to join us on Sunday for the pregame to show to see whether or not we can go number one in the AFC West going against, I believe we play the Detroit Lions after that.
Can you imagine in 2 weeks we could conceivably be 8-5?
Yeah, and number one in the AFC West. And number one in the AFC West. And that's something that we didn't think about. That's something that none of us even thought about with Teddy Bridgewater, but here we are. And so, this could, I don't want to talk about future stuff, but, we're just going to take it one game at a time.
It's hard. It's hard not to think about it.
It's hard. It's hard, especially with Russell Wilson having a rough time in Seattle and Aaron Rodgers being Aaron Rodgers. So, but we're going to take it 1 week at a time. So thank you, everybody, for joining in. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel at all channels at MHRT Network. Shout out to Cameron Parker. Shout out to Glenn. Shout out to Mr. Boggins. Thank you, everybody. Shout out to Broncos Vikings with his family. Thank you guys for joining in. And don't forget to share this video. Thank you all for joining, and we will see you all Sunday.